This is every single fight to make after UFC 269 Oliveira versus Poirier, which just took place. I've got all of the key fighters from that card on the screen right now. Some winners, some losers, and you may notice there is an empty box next to all of them, and that's where their next opponent's going to go, who I have hidden around the perimeter of the screen. As this video goes on, I'll reveal their opponents one by one and place them where they belong on the screen. Let's start straight away with the main event. Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier. A war in the first round that Dustin Poirier got the better of, but Charles Oliveira rallied and came back and showed that championship heart that he has to come back and win by third round, rear naked choke, standing rear naked choke as well, which I predicted, by the way. Moving on though, what's next for Charles Oliveira? Now he's defeated Dustin Poirier. He's decided, and it's now decided, that he is the best lightweight in the world by far. He's got to take on Justin Gaethje next. He was backstage. They had a bit of an altercation backstage as well, where it was basically completely respectful, but still that can be used in the promo. Justin Gaethje said that he wants him next. Charles Oliveira said that he's next, and it's all respect and stuff like that. Great performance, Charles Oliveira. He was in the crowd as well, and you've got his live crowd reaction, so you've got to put Justin Gaethje in there against Charles Oliveira. Plus, although I don't like that Justin Gaethje's getting a title shot, because he's on a one-fight win streak since getting dominated against Khabib, they've said that Justin Gaethje's going to be getting the next title shot, and by the way the camera went straight to Justin Gaethje, you kind of know that he's going to get the next title shot, but on one condition. If he does it actively, if they make this fight in April or May of next year, we can have Justin Gaethje versus Charles Oliveira. If Charles Oliveira wants to wait until June or July, because, hey, I think he broke his nose against Dustin Poirier in that fight, so he might want a little bit more time off, then the winner of Makhachev versus Dariush will be more worthy as a contender than Justin Gaethje by that time. If they have not signed this fight of Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje before Makhachev versus Dariush happens, the winner of Makhachev versus Dariush will be a more worthy contender, and they should get the title shot instead. But I found a way to make sure that Charles Oliveira stays active and that you can make this matchup next for Justin Gaethje, because if Charles Oliveira wants to wait until June, enjoy his time as champion, they're doing a lot of international events now. They want to go back to London in March. They're trying to go around the world to different places again. I'm sure they're going to want to go back to Brazil at some point as well. Tell Charles Oliveira, hey, you want to wait until June or July? We're doing a Brazilian-themed pay-per-view card in May or April. It would be such a shame if you weren't on it, by the way. And then Charles Oliveira will come around real quick to the idea of returning a little bit sooner to perform in front of his home crowd against Justin Gaethje. Let's make that matchup happen in Brazil, if they can. Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, main event of a pay-per-view over there, I think is a good way to do things, and it's a good way to incentivize Charles Oliveira to return early as well, rather than taking a bunch of time off. And I like to see an active champion too, which is always the best for the UFC. Moving on to the loser of the main event, Dustin Poirier. Of course, not the result he wanted. He has questioned retirement, but I guess one way to get him back in there is to say, hey, how about we give you 10% of the pay-per-view shares this time against Conor McGregor in the quadrilogy. I don't know if this is a perfect matchup to make. Ideally, you'd do Dustin Poirier versus, say, the loser of Makhachev versus Dariush or something like that, but Conor McGregor quadrilogy is going to happen next. It will. It just will. Dustin Poirier will be questioning retirement. He might not want to do it anymore. And the UFC is going to say, hey, remember when we gave you 5% of the pay-per-view shares in the trilogy versus McGregor? We'll give you 10% to risk McGregor fluking a KO over you in the first round, so we can move McGregor on to take on the top dogs in the lightweight division and add more life into the lightweight title picture, because Dustin Poirier, he's a charity guy. And when you're a charity guy, and you know that when you make these millions and millions, you can give all those millions back in a way as well, you're not just fighting because you want to. You're fighting because there's a lot of money that you can't possibly turn down. And that orphanage in Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana, is not going to be open without that fund. So you want to make that money, get the money in real quick against Conor McGregor. We'll give you 10% of the pay-per-view share this time for doing us a favour by taking the quadrilogy. They've both been teasing the idea of a fight. Conor McGregor even reacted to Dustin Poirier losing, calling him names and stuff like that. And Dustin Poirier has also mentioned it will never be over between him and McGregor. They've got to settle the score. There is controversy in the trilogy. They were both doing okay. A lot of people say that Poirier was dominating McGregor. Not the case in my opinion in the trilogy. Conor McGregor was doing quite well. Poirier started to take over as the round went on, but at the same time, we have no idea what would happen in this game. Charles Oliveira was being dominated against Michael Chandler, came out in the second round, landed a perfect shot and put him away immediately into the second round. And until that leg break, it was Poirier's round, but it wasn't as dominant. Only once McGregor broke his leg did Poirier pound away with about 12 or 14 ground and pound shots towards the end of the round to make that look like a 10-8 round. But Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor quadrilogy, there's a little bit of controversy they could spin into a promo. He broke his leg, he wasn't ready, he was injured going into it. This is the real trilogy to decide who's the better fighter, and just pay Dustin Poirier a shit ton of money to do it, and you'll get that matchup made, and that's what they're going to do next, in my opinion. It's the perfect fight for Conor McGregor. They'll turn Dustin Poirier around in May of next year against Conor McGregor on the pay-per-view card. Maybe Sean O'Malley in the co-main event. We'll get to him in a second. Let's move on down the card. Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. Juliana Pena got the win. They sort of just stood there like retards in the second round, swinging back and forth without moving their feet whatsoever. And Juliana Pena got the better of it. And then she choked out Nunes with no leverage, not under the chin, no squeeze, no positional control. She just somehow got the choke, which really, really works out for the UFC. I don't think people understand this. The UFC desperately needed Juliana Pena to win. They desperately needed it. There's no matchup for Valentina Shevchenko, but now there is. Amanda Nunes should move and not go back down, or not go back down. I don't think they should make the rematch immediately in the bantamweight division, of course. Nunes is still a champion in the featherweight division of the UFC, whatever that might be. I don't even know if it exists anymore. It basically never existed in the first place, but it's a fake division that Nunes can defend a belt in, so I guess she could move up there. But Juliana Pena can now take on Valentina Shevchenko, a girl that she lost to before. They can make the rematch, and Shevchenko now has an opponent. You have no idea how much the UFC really desperately needed Juliana Pena to win this matchup. Nunes would not take a trilogy against Shevchenko. She's technically beat her twice. So I feel like now they're going to do Juliana Pena versus Valentina Shevchenko 2 for the bantamweight world title. It gives Shevchenko something to do other than just sit out on the sideline for another year while her contenders try and make a new fresh-faced contender for her, because right now there literally is not a contender in the flyweight division for Shevchenko to take on. So really convenient that Pena got that win in an upset while they traded big hands in the center like clowns, and then Nunes tapped to nothing because the choke wasn't even in. Really, really beneficial and really, really coincidental that it worked out that way, because now we have an opponent for Shevchenko. She can move up to the bantamweight division, take on Juliana Pena, attempt greatness, and for Amanda Nunes, I think she moves up to featherweight, defends her belt there against Norma Gimont, and I think that's the next matchup to take place. They're going to do a Brazil card in May, is what I assume is going to happen. And that's what they'll do. Maybe in April, maybe McGregor comes back in May or something like that, or maybe like he comes back in June, or I don't know when McGregor's going to come back. We'll see. But let's say May is the Brazilian-themed card in Brazil. Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje main event. Amanda Nunes versus Norma Gimont in the co-main event. They're both Brazilian women as well, so that makes sense. That'll be a perfect Brazilian-themed pay-per-view card with a slew of great contenders underneath. Good Brazilian names. Maybe Paulo Costa returns on that card, on the main card opener, against Anthony Smith or something like that, or Dominick Reyes. One of those matchups in the light heavyweight division, and that would be a perfect Brazilian-themed card. Let's move on to another matchup that took place. Kai Kara France basically ended Garbrandt's career, but did he? I'll try and salvage an opponent for Garbrandt as well, but Kai Kara France, I predicted this one to happen. I said he'd KO Cody Garbrandt in the first round brutally, and he went out there and KO'd Cody Garbrandt in the first round brutally. Really badly, destroyed him in the first round, multiple knockdowns to a vicious KO finish, walk-off style. Kai Kara France. His next fight's Askarov. I was going to say that maybe he could get a title shot, because that's sort of the narrative that he's been playing this entire time. But did anyone watch the media scrum of Dana White? Because basically what happened was a media member single-handedly ruined any chance of Kai Kara France getting a title shot. If you know, you know, and you watched the media scrum that Dana White did after that event, a media member, I don't know who it is, single-handedly ruined any chance of Kara France getting a title shot. Kai Kara France said after his fight, I don't mind waiting. I'll take on the winner of Moreno versus Figueiredo. He basically meant he doesn't mind waiting to see who the winner of Moreno versus Figueiredo is. And a media member, this fucking smarmy little worm of a cunt, just to suck up to Dana and be funny, and he's laughing as he does it, says Kai Kara-France said he's not going to take any fight until he gets the belt. Until he gets the title shot, he's not going to take any fight and he's going to wait on the sideline. He didn't say it that aggressively, but the media member made it sound that way, made it sound so entitled. Kara-France basically said, "I'll wait, see what happens in the main event in the title fight of Moreno versus Figueiredo 3, and I'll take on the winner for the belt." And the media member basically said, he said he's not going to fight anyone and he's not going to fight at all until he gets the title shot. So Dana White said, "Oh, did he?" and then laughed to himself. That means Kai Kara-France is not getting a title shot. Askarov missed weight in his last fight. He can't get a title shot either. Alejandro Pantoja beat Brandon Moreno. Now, this is going off of the understanding that Brandon Moreno will beat Figueiredo in the trilogy that they have in January. If he does win that one, they do Kai Kara-France versus Askarov for a title shot, and they do Alejandro Pantoja for the belt, because he's already beaten Brandon Moreno. Now, if Figueiredo wins the title, and Moreno is down the list, Figueiredo is already beaten. Has already beaten Alejandro Pantoja. Askarov's missed weight. If Figueiredo becomes champion, then I could see Kai Kara-France having a chance at a fresh matchup by taking on a guy like Deiveson Figueiredo. I think they could do that fight next, but if Brandon Moreno wins, which I believe that he will, they'll do it this way. They'll do Pantoja next for the belt. They have an interaction between them where Pantoja's calling him out face to face when Brandon Moreno's doing a commentary for his event that he won his fight on. Pantoja's also coming off a win against Brandon Royval, who beat Kai Kara-France. He has lost to Askarov, but Askarov missed weight in his last fight, so I think the next most logical thing that should happen is if Moreno wins against Figueiredo, Kai Kara-France, Askarov for a title shot. If Figueiredo wins, then they just do immediately Kai Kara-France for the belt because he's got brutal KOs, he's got a lot of momentum, and this great promo for a title shot because it'd be the two biggest hitters in the men's flyweight division. Figueiredo, let's say he KOs Moreno. You've got Kai Kara-France coming off a big KO against Cody Garbrandt. 2 KO punches in the flyweight division. Makes sense to me. It'd be a great matchup. Moving on, Cody Garbrandt. Oh dear. Cody No Career Garbrandt is in a really bad situation, and I was sad today because in the hype of yesterday with all of the amazing fights on the card, I kind of blew past it, but like I can imagine the pain that Garbrandt is in right now. 8 months to make flyweight and you fuck it up by first round KO loss. Like, it's really not a good sign for Cody Garbrandt moving forward, but there's only one matchup that they can make. There really is only one matchup. I don't care if they're teammates. You can't do Cody Garbrandt versus some unranked bum. You can't do him versus like Howley and Paver coming off a loss. You can't match him against a guy who's coming off a loss outside the rankings. You do a losers go home matchup between him and Frankie Edgar at bantamweight. Fuck flyweight Garbrandt. I think Garbrandt should like bulk himself up at bantamweight a bit. He's small for the bantamweight division. Dude, bulk yourself up. Get some more traps, some more shoulders, some more thickness to you. Some more neck width. You know what I mean? Like, try and bulk yourself up and be more of a tanky fighter in the bantamweight division. Don't drain yourself down to flyweight. I knew it was a bad idea. That's why I picked Kai Kara-France to win by first round KO. If you're getting chinned at bantamweight, don't move down and drain your weight even more. Makes no fucking sense. So, move up to bantamweight again. Pack on like 5 pounds of muscle onto your already bantamweight frame that you had before. And then just sort of bulk up a bit, be a bit more of a sturdy guy with a stronger base, and take on Frankie Edgar, which is a great matchup for you. Not a big KO power guy. Also still relevant and had a good performance against Marlon Vera before losing that matchup. I reckon they should do Cody Garbrandt, Frankie Edgar, co-main event of a fight night, or main card opener of a pay-per-view card. I think that would work out just fine. Cody Garbrandt versus Frankie Edgar. Perfect matchup. Big names. You can't do Garbrandt against a random no-name. You could do here because it was justified, because if he won, he would get a flyweight title shot and it was his first time in the division. But in the bantamweight division, you can't be looking at names outside the rankings for him. So let's do Cody Garbrandt, who'll probably still be ranked at bantamweight at like number 10, number 11, versus Frankie Edgar, who'll probably be ranked like 14 or 13. Winner wins, loser goes home. Make that matchup next for Cody Garbrandt. Moving on to someone else. Sean O'Malley was victorious against Howley and Paver. Number 16 in the world at bantamweight, got destroyed like he was nothing. Sean O'Malley's the real deal, and he needs to take on a good opponent next. I know there's a lot of talk about him taking on Adrian Yanez or like another matchup like that. Like, there's ideas of Marlon Moraes going around and stuff like that too. fuck all that bullshit. O'Malley's going to be ranked number 14 or 15 at the end of this week, or on Tuesday, whenever they change the rankings around again. So he's going to be ranked. There's another guy who's ranked. It needs to be a ranked opponent next, and this guy's coming off a loss, but you could justify it because he's very good. Rob Font. It's a winnable matchup. Stand-up fighter. They paid O'Malley like $200,000 to show, $200,000 to win, to beat Howley and Paver, and they gave him a bonus. I think without sponsorships, and just with his venom, his bonus, his win and show money, I think O'Malley made just under $500,000 for this fight. So, if you're willing to pay him that much to take on Howley and Paver, please be willing to pay a little bit more for him to take on a guy like Rob Font, because if you give him some time, and you give Rob Font some time as well, you could have Poirier versus McGregor in May or June. Preferably May. Maybe you do the Oliveira comeback in June or something like that and just book it way ahead of time so the matchup is made before Makhachev versus Dariush happens. Bring back McGregor in May against Dustin Poirier in a quadrilogy main event and do the co-main event of Sean O'Malley versus Rob Font. It will be justifiably a good co-main event because Rob Font, I believe, is ranked number 5 or 6 right now in the bantamweight division. I think as time goes on, Font will fall down the rankings just naturally because he won't be as active. Other fighters will win bouts and move above him in the division as well. So if Rob Font slowly moves down, you could see him by the end of like February or so be ranked at maybe number, who knows, maybe number 7 or 8 in the bantamweight division. Then you got Garbrandt, or not Garbrandt, Sean O'Malley at 14 or 13. That's a justifiable matchup. It's a jump up the rankings. Rob Font's a stand-up opponent who boxes predominantly. Good matchup for Sean O'Malley. Name that people recognise as well that hasn't lost to bums. He lost to Aldo by decision. So if Sean O'Malley can go out there and get a KO over Rob Font, which maybe could happen as well, by the way, because Rob Font didn't show a great chin against Jose Aldo. He got rocked quite easily a few times. If O'Malley can get a KO over a guy like Rob Font, at this point in his career, it'd be a great win for Sean O'Malley. It'd jump him way up the rankings. And then you can start talking about like a Marlon Vera if he beats Merab Dvalishvili. Marlon Vera, Sean O'Malley too for a title elimination bout. There's so many great matchups you can make. Maybe, and I'll wait until the end of the video to say this though, don't want to spoil things over who my matchup is for Dominick Cruz. But Sean O'Malley, Rob Font, great matchup to make in the bantamweight division. I think that should be next. Or Marlon Moraes. There's also an Adrian Yanez in the meantime, and then take on Rob Font on the McGregor co-main event. But I think next up for O'Malley is a Conor McGregor co-main event spot, because that will blow him up beyond belief in terms of superstardom, especially if he gets a big win over Rob Font there as well. Moving on, Tai Tuivasa on the prelims, got a big win over Augusto Sakai, amazing win over Augusto Sakai, finished him in the second round brutally, did the shoey on top of the cage. You've got to put Tai Tuivasa on the main card of pay-per-views. You can't have him on the prelims anymore, it's a disgrace. He's a big name, he deserves to be in there with the big dogs. Let's do Tai Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. 2 power punches in the heavyweight division, they're going to keep it standing. Perfect matchup for Tai Tuivasa. Great matchup for Jairzinho Rozenstruik as well. And let's see who can throw down better. Who's got the better chin? Who's got more power? Who's going to land first? Let's find out. It's a tough matchup for Tai Tuivasa. I actually don't mind the idea of Rozenstruik winning this one in all honesty, but it's a jump up the rankings against a very good matchup for himself, and it's a big fight as well at the top of the division of heavyweight that will move him forward, but also justify him being high up on a pay-per-view card. You could do Tai Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik in the co-main event of a fight night. At this point, you could do it in a main event based on how big the name value of Tai Tuivasa is, but Tai Tuivasa, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, let's say April card, main card opener, that's a perfect matchup. Tuivasa Rozenstruik, put it on the card. 2 big names at heavyweight that throw down in the center of the cage and trade back and forth. There's going to be a KO, no doubt, 100%. Let's make that matchup happen. I know Jairzinho's coming off a loss right now, but he has got good wins, including a KO win over Augusto Sakai as well. So you can make this matchup definitely warranted. Tuivasa versus Rozenstruik on the main card of a pay-per-view. Sounds good to me. Moving on to Dominick Cruz. Another big win on this card. Dominick Cruz. Also do Jeff Neal versus Sean Brady. Who fucking cares? He didn't even beat Ponzi. Ponzi should have won. Either way, Dominick Cruz should take on Corey Sandhagen. Got a big win over Pedro Munoz, and Corey Sandhagen's right there, going to be looking for an opponent next. Coming off that loss to TJ Dillashaw. After that, he came off a loss to Piotr Jan as well, but he took that one on short notice. Took a lot of damage there as well. He's still young, so I think Corey Sandhagen should take some time off. look to come back in May. Maybe you could put that on the main card of the McGregor comeback card as well. That'd be perfect for the both of them. I mean, imagine that card, right? On the same card, Poirier McGregor 4, Sean O'Malley Rob Font, and Dominick Cruz versus Corey Sandhagen. That'd be a perfect card. But Dominick Cruz, Corey Sandhagen, perfect matchup, old versus the new. I know Sandhagen's sort of like the present because he's not a new guy coming up anymore, but he's got a very similar style to Dominick Cruz, the way he moves, the footwork-based style that he has. Let's make this matchup happen. Dominick Cruz, Corey Sandhagen, perfect rebound fight for Corey Sandhagen if he wants it, good matchup for him, and a huge name as well to keep him relevant in the bantamweight division and build his star power even more moving forward. If he wins against Dominick Cruz, he's looking for title elimination bouts immediately, maybe even against the winner of Sean O'Malley versus Rob Font. Let's say Sean O'Malley beats Rob Font, Sandhagen beats Cruz, or Cruz beats Sandhagen. Hey, we need a title elimination bout. Let's do the two of them versus each other. That's a perfect matchup any way it goes. Dominick Cruz, Corey Sandhagen, perfect matchup in the bantamweight division, and I'd like to see it go down just because I'd like to watch it happen. Absolute masterful display of mixed martial arts will go down if those two take each other on. And as I said, Jeff Neal versus Sean Brady, but who cares? He didn't even win against Ponzi, and I'm standing on that because he didn't. There's no way he won that fucking first round. End of story. Like and subscribe. Good matchups to make from now on. All of these fights are amazing. Get it done, Sean Shelby. I'm sick of fucking waiting around for you. If I can do this shit, what's the fucking hold up? Get the phone calls going and get these matchups made, you fucking midget. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.